Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Moving Pictures written by Terry Pratchett. This was first published in 1990. It is the 10th Discord novel and it is not part of one of the existing character subseries of which the Discord is well known for. So first of all, what is the Discord itself? So it is, as you might be able to predict, a disc world itself, a flat world. It is resting on the back of 4 very large elephants, which by themselves stand on the back of a very large world turtle, which, as you would expect, rather than swimming through water, it swims through the depths of space in exactly the same way. Sounds strange, and it is, but this strangeness and bizarreness works in the Discord's favour time and time again. So as far as the synopsis for Moving Pictures is concerned, it starts off in the city of Ankh-Morpork. It is a city which is blatantly based off London, England, but with every stereotype of London taken to extreme levels and twisted and turned and made fun of. Terry Pratchett has returned to the city of Ankh-Morpork, ergo London, multiple times, and he keeps doing it frankly because it's a location that he enjoys, and there's so much that he has created with the city. It's frankly really impressive. Anyway, as far as the city is concerned, there are multiple guilds set within it. Guilds for assassins, thieves, merchants, and so on. One of them is the Alchemists Guild, and at the start of the novel they discover, or invent, however you want to phrase it, the idea of celluloid and film, ergo the silver screen and movies. So this gets invented and they are congratulating themselves on how amazingly inspired they were. They got weirdly inspired for no apparent reason. They just seem to have strange ideas in their heads and acted on it, which comes into play later, because there is another location called Holy Wood. Yes, it is that blatant with this novel, Holy Wood, Hollywood. A long way away from Ankh-Morpork, it's a small hill in the middle of nowhere, and it has really good lighting, and nothing of a special about it, apparently. Anyway, this Holywood area, for some strange reason, seems to start attracting people towards it somehow. People just seem to think that they need to go to Holywood and do movies. So, the Discord movie industry, very similar to Hollywood, although in a rather more mad and frantic manner, is created in Holywood. And 2 of its new and upcoming stars are Victor Tugglebend and Feeder Wivell. Although they do not call themselves those names, they, like is often the case in the early golden Hollywood years, use screen names, obviously. And her screen name, for instance, Feeder, is Ginger. Now her surname isn't Rogers in the novel, but it's blatantly obvious that she could be that character. She could be Marilyn Monroe. She's basically an amalgamation of multiple golden Hollywood characters and figures, same as Victor. His, lots of characters, sort of combined elements. And they start acting and breaking records for, fantastical movies, or at least that's what they are told. And however, this leads to some rather strange events occurring in Hollywood and back in Ankh-Morpork. And frankly, what happens is a series of very strange events where nothing is quite as it seems. That is always true for Hollywood/Hollywood, but here it really is, because the magic of the silver screen is quite literal magic in a sense. Nothing is as it seems, and it's very strange and bizarre, and events start spiraling outwards in a rather dramatic fashion, and let's say all the characters combine into a really interesting plot that at times can be a little bit complicated, but actually when you think about it, once you've read the book, it's actually quite straightforward, and one that I really enjoy. And I'm not going to say too much more about the plot because I'll give away spoilers. And the thing that I can talk about that will not give away spoilers are the characters. So the two main characters, who are Victor and Vida, aka Ginger, they are really interesting characters. He is a former wannabe wizard. He was actually going for the exams when he basically left university and came to Hollywood. She was a milkmaid who came to the Hollywood to make her name. And they are stereotypes of the figures that want to go to Hollywood in the real world and make their name, make their mark, and become big stars. And these two, combined with various other significant figures, like, for instance, cut my own throat Dibbler, who is the ultimate street trader essentially. He can sell anything to anybody, especially if the item in question doesn't actually exist. He will literally sell things that don't exist yet, or might not even exist in this reality. He doesn't quite mind. He never does things that are fully illegal, but it's bordering on illegal often. He just about barely gets away with it. And he's a really fun character. And in this case, Dibbler becomes a movie producer and director with rather interesting results, let's say, because remember, he is all about making money and about selling things to anybody. And he's in the movie industry, which is obviously known for being cutthroat, well, at least the stereotype of cutthroat, and this presents some interesting results. And there are several other major characters that come into play, like Gaspode and Laddie, who are dogs, which I'm not going to talk about why a pair of dogs come into the plot line, but they are very important, especially to Victor and Ginger, and they are really interesting characters whom you actually learn a surprising amount about, considering they are dogs. There's very few books where the characters are still dogs without being, alien in some way, and so critical to the plotline. And that is because of the environment, partially. The environment in the Discworld, obviously the Discworld itself, and Hollywood, and again Ankh-Morpork, which is London. This creation of the sort of different environments where you've got the big, sort of stable, long-running city in Ankh-Morpork. Then you've got the new, exciting location of Hollywood, where all these new, exciting developments in movies such as happening, creates an interesting contrast. Some characters are able to handle this, some characters aren't. It is described extremely well, and it is obviously directly related to Hollywood, but not quite as you think it is. For instance, the buildings in Hollywood are purely facades, I should say, where the outside of the building is all fancy looking and such, and the inside is actually literally a wooden shell with really basic stuff, and that applies to the homes and the houses as well. Everything looks nice on the surface, but in Hollywood it really is purely on the surface, which obviously is playing up to the idea of everything in Hollywood being very superficial and skin deep. And in this, it literally is as skin deep as it looks, and it's playing up to that fact. And indeed, that is one of the major ideas or themes in this novel. The whole novel is basically Pratchett being very satirical, very sarcastic about Hollywood and the movie industry. But there's one interesting thing to know, and that is often when somebody is satirical about the movie industry and Hollywood, which has happened before and happens in the future, often it can end up as quite harsh and frankly quite mean and unpleasant. Pratchett, it is blatantly obvious that he's not meaning it in a harsh or mean manner. Now, yes, he's certainly going in depth, and some of the things you might think, a little bit nasty, maybe, if you're looking at it from a certain light, but it's truly not. Nothing that he says can be considered in that way, because he's truly just enjoying everything that he's saying about Hollywood and the movie industry, and he's just having fun with it. For instance, obviously, as I said, the point about everything being skin deep, and indeed the people being very much artificial and superficial, that's an interesting discussion that T. Pratchett brings up, which I think is really interesting. And essentially, that is the whole point of this novel, is just to explore Hollywood ideas and stereotypes, and just play with them and make the reader think about what Hollywood is, or at least what Hollywood thinks it is. And it's just really done in a way that is both really humorous and also both deep and meaningful. And overall, it's in some way a really interesting, thoughtful novel with great world building, as you would expect, great characters, and some really interesting and surprisingly deep ideas, whilst also managing to stay superficial and skin deep. But it's actually more than it seems, just like Hollywood. So overall, that is it for my review. I will link this book in the description box below, along with all my social media links. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you another time. Bye for now.